Welcome to the American Made and Paid Show, the home of free speech and independent thought.
The big story is freedom of speech is really in trouble. The far left knows that at any time they can call for a sponsor boycott of anyone they despise.
It is right here, right now, where you'll get your weekly dose of unfiltered truth.
It's non-negotiable. Pre-existing conditions will be protected. This president has said this as a candidate.
Insight.
Very few people I know could have handled it. We can never, ever let this happen to another president again.
And information that challenges the American way of life.
What's going on, everybody? Zach here, back with the American Made and Paid Show. I got Professor Dreg with me. Thank you guys for tuning into today's show. A lot to talk about here. Thank you guys for constantly being such a great listening crowd. I'm sorry if I haven't been very responsive. It's been pretty busy here. Please be sure to leave us an iTunes review if you haven't done so already, and share this with 5 of your friends if you think they need a little bit of a dose of independent thinking. I know that I get some complaints, not really complaints, but feedback from people who absolutely love this show, and I really, really appreciate it, guys. I know it's not what you would typically expect. It's not polished. It's not edited. You hear a baby crying sometimes, someone sneezing. It's very, it's like backyard style, but we are working towards a venue. Yeah, there you go. You see, he coughed. Working towards a point.
That was me.
Yeah, no, I know. But we are slowly working towards a point where we're going to obviously have more opportunities for you guys to call in, to participate. We'll actually have guests on and everything. It's just that this isn't done live. But anyways, I'll cut to it. What I want to get into.
Now I'm curious about all the negative feedback.
No, there's no negative feedback we're getting. We're just getting input. There's not negative feedback. There's only been 1 or 2, but the types of feedback that I sometimes get is because it's not polished, not because the content is bad.
You know how you think about it for the listeners? This is like professional wrestling in your backyard. It's not as good as like what you'd see in Madison Square Garden, but it's really entertaining. And those like underground professional wrestling shows, man, like you'd be shocked. Like, cause we used to go to them.
Yeah.
And they were, it was packed for a yard. You know what I mean? Like in someone's backyard, he'd have about 200-300 people just watching a bunch of goofballs pretending to be Hulk Hogan.
well, that's the thing. Our show right now, I think of it as having sort of a, I think of it right now as having a sort of like a home video type feel, right? And that's okay. Right now, it's still lo-fi. I can't wait till we're 200 episodes in. We're at like episode 75 or something, and then we've upgraded. That's just how it works. That's the progression of things. Don't want to start off too crazy. But anyways, to jump into what we want to talk about today, we've discussed progressivism being a death culture, right? Progressive behavior eventually leads to death, which kind of falls in line with Christianity again, because when you have God, you seek life. You value life. God gives us life, right? And the perfect example of it.
Well, I hated to cut you off, but remember what we said. We literally said that, and I hate to say this because I know we're the only ones saying this. Progressive ideology is suicide culture. Remember? That's what we had said in earlier episodes. That it is a suicide behavior. Now continue.
Well, so that being said, obviously we all have seen instances of Jeffrey Epstein in the news. Somebody who is facing charges of sex trafficking involving, underage girls. Obviously, this guy's part of a sex cult, had ties to folks like Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and all that. And this just reaffirms a lot of the things that we've been talking about. This guy's a multimillionaire, if not like a billionaire, right? And this guy's in a jail cell. And I don't think that, it's not clear whether he was trying to commit suicide or if he was actually like assaulted and beat up in jail. But either way, when you see marks on his neck and everything, it's like he might have tried to kill himself, right?
I don't mean to laugh, but that is funny. It's not funny, haha, but I'm laughing because it was so predictable.
That's the right word, because we have talked about how progressivism in every sense of the behavior and the beliefs inevitably leads to death or suicide, right? Money has got nothing to do with it. Sex and all that. This is all carnal behavior. This is all carnal behavior that we've talked about. And this right here that we're talking about is basically Romans 8 all over again. To be carnally minded is death. And that was, it's this guy, because here's the thing, right? We have to talk about this because I want people to start recognizing progressive behavior and the inevitability of it. It's just how it works. Without the values, being carnally minded in this way eventually will destroy you. And I don't even want to sound like, a self-righteous religious type guy, but it's got even nothing to do with that. It's when you engage in these kinds of acts, I think it makes your brain go crazy. We talked about, how some of these Democrat progressives are delusional. Some of them are like mentally ill. That's not an over-exaggeration. I mean, I think these guys are flat out, I don't want to sound like Alex Jones, but possessed by demons. Like when he says things like that, he's not wrong.
Why I laugh. No, I'm laughing. I mean, because now this is why I believe I'm probably not going to heaven, because I'm laughing about it. But it's funny to me how I'm always right. Like, I'm always right. I might be wrong, but when I figure out why I'm wrong, like, I admit it and I move forward. But knowing this, I laugh because it should be self-evident to almost everybody that this behavior, not just that, because when you think about the carnal mind, as described in Romans, because that's the only way I really know it and understand it is through Romans. But when you really look at it, can you imagine and this is why prisons are so bad, because think about it. Think about losing your freedom. You are no longer, you are literally a slave to another man. And if your mind is such like Epstein, which is really, really out there, now imagine what it's like for him when he becomes the object of somebody else's carnal.
Sure.
I don't want to say debauchery, but
I want to get into that, because when you get your rights and your freedoms deprived from you in Jeffrey Epstein's case, and let's just give the audience a little bit of a background. This guy is a multi-millionaire hedge fund manager, Jew, I just got to say, he's connected to all of these powerful people, and yet, even though he may have the power to buy himself out of this, which is just the case, that's just how it works here. You can buy yourself out of that. Yet, even with that, to have your freedoms deprived from you, this is the inevitability of progressive thinking. Because progressive thinking, I am convinced at this point, is Christ rejecting. It just is. It's Christ rejecting, which is rejecting life from my perspective. And when you do that, you just get overrun with all this kind of stuff. I mean, I hate it, but because you don't want to say things like this, but he's all the stereotypes of what a bad Jew is. Like, I mean, I hate to say things like that.
Okay, but instead of saying it,
I don't want to sound like a,
no, because, and that's the problem, because everybody will say, "Oh, you're anti-Semitic," but it's not this. I'm not kidding you.
It's the Christ rejecting part of it that's leading.
No, but forget about the Christ rejecting. This is because I don't even know what to call it, because it's not really. It's the words of Christ. Whatever is in Romans, whatever Jesus had said in his parables, that is an absolute truth. And because it's an absolute truth, everything else is false. It's proven in geometry. What makes a proof is absolute. There is no exceptions to that. Right. And that is what the words of Christ are. It's an absolute truth. And look, if you're a Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, you are unfortunately wrong, because you are rejecting common
truth is
of an absolute truth.
Of an absolute truth.
Because look, an absolute truth can be easily defined as simple as 1 + 1
is 2.
Well, 2 always.
Always, yeah.
And there is always an infinite number between 1 and 2. And that's like the carnal mind. So when people understand the carnal mind is the infinite possibilities between 1 and 2, that's where you see the Jewish faith, the Muslim faith, the Buddhist faith. It all fits in those, theorems.
And to expand on that, I like that we're talking and revisiting this aspect of progressivism in this case again, which is racism and not you're not adhering to what truth is with Christianity. But here's the thing. Carnal minded in this instance with Jeffrey Epstein, the reason why I want to talk about him today is because he's like the culmination of all the things we've been talking about. This guy's got money, he had women, he had power. This guy probably could have manipulated negotiations between countries and all that. I don't want to get into conspiracies here, but the guy was well connected. You had money, you had power, you had the former president next to you. Like, it's just like, come on. Talk about carnally.
Next to him.
Yeah. Carnally minded, if you want to think about it, you have all of those things at your disposal. And if it's being abused and if it's not in line with what truth is with God, the result is always the same. And I don't want to sound overly crazy and religious, but I have to nail this home for our listeners because Jeffrey Epstein is the best example of what we've been talking about for months of what not to do. You know what I mean?
No, but it's very true. But you know what, though? The funny thing is, people excused his behavior using religion. And that's what a lot of, I mean, and you hate to say things like that, but that's why a lot of Jewish people look the other way, because how old were these victims of Mr. Epstein? How old were they?
He molested that 14-year-old
Exactly.
kid.
So is 14 really, if you're a Jewish person or a Muslim person, is 13 years old really that young? 14 is
For
it
you?
really
Nah.
Not for them. See, not for them. And that's why
point.
it's excusable, because they were using their own faith, because even Muhammad married a 6-year-old.
Well, that's what I'm saying too. We talked for like 2 hours one time about the mainstreaming of pedophilia with NAMBLA. We talked about that. All mainstream backed organization. In fact, there was a movie that I came back into prominence called I, Pedophile. And the thing is, people are not exploring. They're exploring this fact that people who are pedophiles are just born that way and everything. And
they're made that way.
They're made that way, which is why it's excusable. Here's the thing. For some reason, I'm willing to bet that if it were a Christian person who were in the same position, they would not be treated the same way.
They wouldn't be so forgiving.
Yeah, they wouldn't be so forgiving. There's something about like I hate to say things like this, but Woody Allen is another example of this type of behavior. Woody Allen, and we celebrate Woody Allen.
Well, not we, you and me, but other people.
When I say we, I mean people celebrate Woody Allen. Woody Allen is still at red carpet events. Woody Allen's movies are still held in high acclaim. And I mean, like, this guy is sick in the head. He is sick in the head. And I will say that, right? With no reservations. Like, this guy married his daughter. And prior to doing that, he was like grooming her, taking nude photos of her.
Well, I mean, but think about this, though. That same thing happened to Muhammad. Muhammad married a 6-year-old simply to groom her so she could bear children and all this other stuff. But that's what Woody Allen did. Because that's what they used to do. The Jews used to do that a long time ago.
See,
that was part of their thing.
If you'd say this stuff on TV, they'll freaking kick you off. But I'm just stating a fact here.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, or YouTube, right? That's why we do it on our own format here. They're not going to get us kicked off. And that's the thing. It's like, we just need to talk about. So we have been talking about it.
But here's the absolute truth. What Jesus had said about committing sin in your mind is just as bad as actually doing it. There's a reason why he told that parable, and that is to prevent people like Epstein from acting out what their thinking is. Because, of course, Jesus knew that.
Sophia,
yeah, I know. She's just, but anyway, so Jesus had known that people act out on their thoughts. If they're crazy with their thoughts, blah, 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 you're going to act out on what you think, because the things you see can become reality. No matter what you dream, like you can dream of a transporter, and I guarantee you one day we are going to have a transporter where we're going to become particles and come back as a real wave, just like how Because that's literally how Jesus became Jesus.
Well, sure. No, Jesus was Jesus because he was God in the flesh. So I'll say that.
No, but that's what but like the mechanism. How did Jesus go from heaven and be put into Mary, as a virgin? How did that happen? That is something that could be done scientifically. That could be proven through particles. If you understand particles and waves and how they actually act, because people tend to think that a wave is something separate, but then particles are working together to make that wave. So that form of energy that that God was able to put into Mary, that made Jesus flesh. Because I'm telling you, Jesus was not human. He is, obviously God. So
he's human, but he's God in the flesh.
Exactly. So that is our first way of ever seeing a real transporter like you see in Star Trek, but it wasn't.
Sure. But let's not go down the segue.
Let's not deviate.
I want to talk about, because in our last episode we talked about promiscuity. We talked about something related to this, right?
Well, see, my point of saying that is that Jesus had the foresight of knowing what's in our mind can become a reality. So when you think about lustful things, that will be reality. And that was Jeffrey Epstein's reality. That is Weinstein's reality. That is Kevin Spacey's reality. That is almost every homosexual's, because I hate to say this, but a homosexual has it in their mind to do gay things because they're perverted in such a way.
And the thing is, I think Jewish culture has kind of,
it allows it
and made it okay. And here's the thing, dude. There's no coincidence that Tel Aviv is now the gay capital of the entire world.
I know.
The entire world.
No, but why? Because they're lustful, just like the Muslims. Even the Muslims are so lustful. They're the exact same way because
and the same way, and the same kind of lust for sex is the same kind of lust for money and for war.
Boom, exactly, because money makes your carnal mind dreams come true. Without money, nothing.
And that's why when you give a bunch of poor people a lot of money, they blow it on cocaine and sex. It's just it's almost geometric. It's like a formula. It's like if you don't know how to use money and you're carnally minded, think about it, man. Like I always have to use this example. Everybody has to go watch that video of that famous response to the lottery winner. When the interviewer went up to him, he didn't even think. She was like, what are you going to spend your winnings on if you win? He's like, cocaine and hookers. He was like, what? And later when the news crew interviewed him, because it went viral, you know what he said? I don't know what was going through my mind. That was just the first thing that came out. And I'm telling you right now, that is it's honest, because that's true. But that's just how people are. You give people money, free money. It just amplifies their lusts at a bigger level. And he's honest. Like, that's the truth. That's what people do with money.
A bald man is going to buy hair. He's going to spend a lot of his money on growing back his hair. Instead of just accepting that he's bald, he's going to get a hair transplant. Why? Because he wants to act out on his carnal thinking. Regardless of what it is, that's the motivation behind hair transplants. That's the motivation of steroids. That's the motivation to getting a good job and making good money. It's the carnal mind. And that is a lesson that only is taught in Christianity. I'm not kidding. I've been studying, like the past, week and a half, all other faiths or religious beliefs that honestly teaches about the mind controlling your carnal behavior. Jesus is the only one that actually addressed it. He's the only one. And that's why I know without a doubt it is an absolute truth, because every scientific principle known to man has stemmed from our mind. And we can make it reality, but you got to have faith. Seriously, without faith, nothing happens. You got to believe it. You dream it, you believe it, and then it happens. Seriously, it's that simple. You got to have faith first. And that's if you look at faith from a scientific perspective, it's the same thing. You have to believe
Right.
that it can be done. And
well, yeah, because we looked at that throughout history, like going to the moon, breaking the sound barrier, breaking the 5-minute mile. Like it's all faith, right? It's all belief. That just shows you that the God made our brains to be powerful proponents of free will and neuroplasticity, which is a powerful thing. Like when it comes to overcoming porn addiction, man, you have to believe that your brain can actually rewire itself where you don't crave it anymore. And slowly through the practice of it, I'm getting there, but it works. Like, but you have to believe that your brain doesn't need it. You really do. And and the way to anchor yourself is to anchor yourself on Jesus. Like, it's just like, that's how it works. That's a different subject for a different day. But here's the thing. Jeffrey Epstein's tale needs to be a word of caution. And also people need to understand that we're not just going, oh, well, another guy, like what you're going to hear on CNN or whatnot is another guy affiliated with Clinton and was caught in a sex scandal and everything. It's like, all this is predictable. This should not shock anybody. And I think that when we first mentioned Jeffrey Epstein a few days ago or a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatnot, I think it's safe to say, you hate to say this stuff, but one of us could have called it. Like, it's just like, this is what happens. This is what happens.
The only reason why this became an issue is because he was associated with Trump. And then when they found out he was associated with Clinton, they were like, uh-oh. You know what I mean? It's like, uh-oh, what do we do?
Can't say things like that. Can't say that Clinton was involved too, you know?
Yeah, and our outrage against Trump, we accidentally caught Clinton.
So, speaking of Clinton, I saw this thing floating around on the internet recently, and I don't know if it's real or not, but I think it's worth bringing up because I think there's some truth even in internet memes where people say that anybody who speaks bad about Clinton or used to be affiliated with Clinton and are ex-associates have an 843% chance of committing suicide or die. Like that, the chances go up when you die. And I was like, maybe this person's just joking around on the internet, but I can't help but think that there's some truth behind that because, I mean, people die when you speak out against the Clintons and stuff. It's just.
But we talked about this before on this show. Was how many people do you know who's honestly been murdered? If you're not from the streets, it's hard to say, like, because a lot of people from the ghetto knows people who've been murdered.
Yeah,
it's just how it works. But not, but anyway, but most people honestly can say 0 to 1 people they know who have been murdered. About 0 to 1 is the normal response. Hillary Clinton personally knows 22 people who have been murdered. And she is not from the ghetto. Because the average person from the ghetto, they'll probably know about 3 to 4 because like their brother, sister, somebody like that's been murdered. And then people down the street, they've been murdered. But, not like 10. You don't know 10 dudes that have been murdered.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you're like really from the ghetto, it's about 3 to 4.
Yeah.
But Hillary Clinton knows 22 people who have been murdered. 22. That's insane. Who knows that many people that's been murdered?
And not counting war veterans. That's not the same thing, right?
Yeah, or like some dude from Somalia whose village has been, war torn. You know what I mean? It's like, them Somalis, dude, they kill, like they literally will murder like 50 people at a time in the same village. So, she's not any of that stuff. And she doesn't know any Haitians. She doesn't know anybody. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like she was friends with people in Haiti. So her knowing 22 people who are, murder in the first degree, that's insane. That is insane. But, whatever. People don't like to talk about things like that. But
talking negatively about Hillary Clinton puts you on a cryptic hit list where eventually the government keeps a watchful eye on you. It's just all kinds of
But that's how the whole thing behind this collusion and obstruction of justice happened, because the Clintons were breaking the law. And that's how they went after the Trump. They went after Trump by breaking the law. It's that simple. They used the FBI as their personal spies. And because the FBI, they have no faith. They don't believe in the Constitution. They don't believe in, they don't. Look, I guarantee you, they are not Christian people. Spooks are just not Christians. People in the CIA, they're just not. They have absolute power, and with that power comes a God-like mentality. I know this because I'm one of them. I had the same problem. I had a God-like mentality. Seriously, I can go anywhere in the world and I would be God because they need me. Without me, they can collapse.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, she may be one of the most famous evil people still living on the planet today. But here's the thing that we have to think about, too, because even though the mainstream and a lot of people who are brainwashed won't know any better, they'll hear rumors like Hillary Clinton's evil and all that kind of stuff. You have to also understand that people who are blatantly evil, who get their way, you have to think about this just in the human context. Historically, are always people who you don't think are actually evil. And the devil is the same way. He's called, okay, so here's the thing that you'll learn in the Bible. The devil is constantly referred to as deceiver or temptress. Why do you think that is? The most absolute evil you can think of is deceitful evil, is when you don't think it's evil. Why do you think they say looks are sort of, misleading and you don't know? It's what you don't know that's the most evil and dangerous, not what you do. Because here's the thing. If someone looked like some monster, right, and looked like Frankenstein, even though Frankenstein might have a good heart or whatever, you're just like, oh man, it's a monster. Get away. That's evil. But don't you get it? That's not how evil works. Evil takes place in a form where it's just like you don't suspect it, and it has been able to corral the majority of people into believing that they're not evil. That is the most evil of all. Like when we think of human sociopaths, when we think of psychos, it's when you don't know they're evil. That's how it works. And we know that time and time again. But here's the thing. Most people won't accept that. Most people will think, oh, no, she's a woman, strong woman, empowering woman. And she'll do flat out, pandering, hypocritical things in front of folks, and people can't see past it. People can't even listen.
Well, the thing is, Frankenstein's monster actually did have a good heart.
Yeah, well, that's the other irony, right? Of stories that are just like that. But
Frankenstein himself was bad, but the monster
was good. The monster
was good, it's a trippy story. But here's the thing: adding to what you said about deceiving. I want everybody to think about Haiti.
Haiti, yeah.
Who was helping a lot with Haiti, with the Clintons?
All the celebrities, Beyonce, Jay-Z.
No, forget about the celebrities. Jeffrey Epstein. He too donated a lot. And makes you kind of wonder, did he go to Haiti as well? Did he take advantage of the people over there in Haiti? Who knows? We don't know. Those are all secrets that we will never know. The only thing is this. Jeffrey Epstein donated a ton of money to the Clinton Foundation for Haitian relief. And none of the Haitians got that money. But it makes you wonder, what were they doing over there then? What were they doing? You know what I mean? Seriously, what were they doing? Now that we know what Epstein was doing with young girls, was he doing that to Haitian girls? Was Clinton doing that with Haitian girls? Bill Clinton? Who knows? We don't know, but the one thing we do know, all that money didn't go to Haiti. Or maybe 10% of the money raised went to Haiti, but it didn't go to Haiti itself.
Man, I was so brainwashed back in the day. Gosh, but I see the truth now, so it's fine.
No, but because look, I'm not kidding you. You see what I'm doing. I'm taking care of the baby. I'm talking from the top of my head. Everybody should look up what happened to Haiti. Who was the major? Because look, I think the Clintons raised about $800 million.
More than that, $2 billion.
Yeah, Jesus. Okay, so oh my God, so it's even worse than what I could imagine. But oh God, really? That much money?
You have to understand that when the Haiti earthquake took place years ago, man, it was a big stir. You had folks it was like Michael Jackson united everybody and they did a whole We Are the World Haiti style. Like how I heard about Haiti was not through the Clintons. It was like you had Kanye, you had Beyonce, you had all these people doing Haiti relief album stuff like We Are the World, Change the World type stuff to raise money. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for earthquake relief. one of the biggest foundations that were being donated to, spearheading disaster relief in Haiti, was the Clinton Foundation.
Yeah, well, actually, they were the only ones. Like the Red Cross was giving money to, the Clintons, because no, look, I'm not kidding you. Hillary Clinton took control of it. That's why, I honestly don't know what Bill Clinton was doing, but now that we know what they were doing with Bill Epstein, and we all know Bill Epstein donated a ton of money. So I'm pretty sure they were setting up Haiti as a sex tourism spot.
Oh my God.
Seriously, think about it.
I don't want to sound like Alex Jones, but I have to agree with you. Like, I think it's not far off. Like, okay, I have no evidence to support sex tourism in Haiti, but I'm not surprised if that were the case.
No, but it's not a tourism. It was specifically for Jeff Epstein. Because why else? Like, when you donate big money, because this is how it works. When people donate money, they want to see, quote unquote, how the money's going to be spent. They want to see the people. So Jeff Epstein and Bill Clinton are walking around town. It's like, hey,
talking to the Haitians, yeah,
we're gonna help you. Hey, young girl, we're gonna help you. You want to see what kind of help we're gonna give you? And then they go to a hotel, and boom, 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 and guess what? He starts writing checks. That's how it works. That's reality.
Funny. The way you said it was very like how Bill Clinton would have said it. Like, I did not have sexual relations with anybody on that airplane.
But that's funny though, because in theory, he's correct when you think about it, because he was performing sodomy. Which isn't the same as sexual relations. Having sex means you're doing it the right way. Committing sodomy is what he was doing. So he's a sodomite. Bill Clinton was a sodomite. He was committing sodomy, and that's what he was doing in the White House. But he didn't get impeached for that. He got impeached for lying, because everybody knows that's what they do. All of these, I hate to say this, but because you just want to call everybody a sodomite.
Well, the thing is, and that's what you're saying is true. But it's so true that it offends people. And here's the thing. You got to say things like this.
It offends them because they reject absolute truth.
Right. And sodomy, calling someone a sodomite for their behavior is of the absolutes of their actions here. And that's the crazy thing. You'll never even hear the word sodomite preached from the pulpit unless it's like a fundamental Baptist preacher, which is what I listen to. But here's also what I'm saying. Michael Savage got kicked off the air for saying sodomite.
CNN. He was on
CNN. So he had and this was 10 years ago. Literally, a guy called in, right, and was talking about, he was like talking about getting it on with people, right? And Michael Savage just blows back and says, "Are you one of those sodomites? You sodomite, filthy sodomite."
Get off my ear, you sodomite! Get off my phone, you.
No, he didn't even say that. He said, "You filthy sodomite. I hope you go choke on some sausage or something." Like, he literally said that, and literally you can hear the camera guy in the background go, "Whoa!" Like, they're just like, "Did Michael Savage really say that?" That's what I love Savage for doing, is speaking his mind. I know the guy's Jewish, but he's like,
but he's not like an ordinary. Because that's the thing. It's like, it's either you're going to accept the truth.
But he's a conservative. He's not a progressive.
Yeah, no, see, because that's the thing. It's like, because look, I honestly believe the words of Christ is absolute truth. And that's how we have, like, instead of saying Christianity, we just have to recognize it as absolute truth. There is no deviance from it, because it's the absolute truth. It's like, until we understand that it is the absolute truth in everything, nothing can ever be accomplished, because you were saying this to me the other day. You got to have faith first. You got to have faith in what you see is going to come true. And how Jesus described the carnal mind in his parables is an absolute truth, dumbed down the same way Dr. Seuss dumbs down stories for children. It's just like, if you ever read the thing about the stars and the two belly sneetches or something like that, and
but see, here's the thing that I have to say. Nothing about what we're saying is particularly revolutionary or even complicated.
Nah, we're not the first ones to say it.
No, but what I'm saying is it's also simple because people are like, what is all this stuff? It sounds complicated. Yeah, they make it complicated so you don't understand it. It's part of the reason why they manipulate your language. Like academia, studying 12 years for gender studies, for all the convolutions and atrocities of different people. All of that is complicated stuff that actually is not meant to be so complicated. There's right and wrong.
That's why let me add this really quick, because that's why, in like, because I want it, because geometry is real easy to explain,
right?
So in geometry, a theorem works a lot. It works like 80% of the time. It works 90% of the time, but it doesn't work absolutely 100% of the time. And that's what progressive ideology is. It is a theorem that doesn't work all the time.
That's a good way to put it.
Work, because eventually it will not work. And when it doesn't work, you get frustrated and then you get suicidal because you're going to get some weird disease or you're going to get
so here's the thing about theorems. That's interesting because you could apply that same theory of theorems to evolutionary psychology or biology, where some of it is okay and acceptable and some of it's just blatantly wrong. But to think of it as absolutes and absolute truth is not the case here, because like what you said about geometry is perfect, because it's simple, because it's absolute, which means there's no exception to the rule. There just isn't. And God's word or Jesus's teachings is absolute truth. And I mean, again, people are listening to this.
Testament's not absolute.
What's that?
The Old Testament is not absolute.
Jesus came to fulfill it, is what we're saying here. Like,
yeah,
that's
why it's not absolute truth, because the story of Cain and Abel, it doesn't teach you about the absolute of it, of what was meant by that story. Because with Cain, whatever, like, why didn't God accept his sacrifice? Right? Because God, but the thing is, it doesn't tell you. It's a theorem because it leads too much to interpretation. But when Jesus came and he explains it, and when he went through his actions, boom, that's the proof. He shows the proof through his actions and his stories and his commandments. See, through Jesus' commandments, everything, every story, every historical text of the Old Testament is now become a proof. Because that's how you do it. See, because if Cain understood the first commandment, he would have recognized why God didn't accept his offerings. But there was no first commandment. I mean, there was, but a different first commandment, if that makes any sense. So if you applied what Jesus taught, Cain could have avoided a lot of headaches. He could have. A lot of these, I don't want to call them heroes, but a lot of the characters of the first, of the Old Testament could have avoided a lot of their headaches with the understanding of the first commandment. But the only person who understood the first commandment, or Jesus' commandment, would have been Job, according to you, because he never lost faith. He understood it. But it didn't break it down because he loved God the way he loved himself and blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, that was never taught in that lesson. That lesson was, I don't even know what the lesson of that is. Like, just have faith. But you know what I mean? But it doesn't explain why. It doesn't, because, like, think about it. What's his name? Job, right? Job had a great love for himself as well as God. Because you know what I mean? Can you imagine going through what Job went through if he didn't love himself? What if he was Woody Allen? And he'd be feeling sorry. Oh, I feel so sorry for myself. Oh, like that whininess that those guys have.
He had everything taken from him, infected with bodily harm and boils and all that kind of stuff, and didn't curse God and praised him. Wait, but you don't praise unless you love yourself.
Exactly. That's why the first commandment is, because seriously, without all this, I don't even know if you even need a second commandment. But, if you master the first,
you will love God as you love yourself, and then you will love your neighbor.
Everything becomes easy. That's the lesson nobody talks about in Job. Nobody ever says Job loved himself too, because he did. That's why he was the most successful man. He's one of my favorite Bible characters, and I like, if people talk about like Old Testament guys, like talk about like a rich guy who got everything taken away from him and like didn't give in
and then eventually God rewarded him back twice over what his wealth was. Dude, like it's just
no, but think about that.
Yeah.
See what Job went through. See, because this is why we needed Jesus. See, because the Old Testament doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, well, it does. You got to read it totally. Though.
No, seriously. It makes no sense until you read the commandment of Jesus. Once you understand what Jesus said, then you can go back and read the Old Testament. Like, oh, this is why Job survived. This is why, because he had a self-love for himself as well, because he loves God. And when you love God, it comes with this kind of confidence that you just, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't talk about Job's self-confidence. It doesn't, because why do you think people commit suicide? They hate themselves. They doubt themselves. Like, oh, I feel like regret and that, pull off myself, just like with Jeffrey Epstein. And why is he feeling this way? See, because they confuse self-love with carnal lust. You know what I mean? And when you confuse
their
carnal lust,
and their identity is defined by their carnal lust and their materialism.
Yeah, and when they lose it, they lose their mind. But why did Job? Why was his mind strong? It wasn't just because he loved God. It was because through loving God, he was able to love himself.
Forgive yourself too. If you're
exactly, because that's the thing. Like, I can't forgive myself. Seriously, that's my big problem. For a lot of the things I did, I still feel bad. I can't forgive myself for a lot of because man, and I told you some of these stories, like, one of the dudes.
No, I know, but I hope you do one day bring yourself to forgive yourself. I mean, that's something. It'll take. Hey,
feel bad. You know what I mean?
I know we all do. Guilt is
so bad.
Sure,
but then, and it's hard to break that. But that's the thing. Without faith, see, what's his name? Job had faith. Epstein didn't. Because Epstein, look, you gotta. The thing is like this. If you're really going after young broads like 13, 14, something's wrong with your head. You know what I mean? Like something's truly wrong with you. And the thing is, because I've seen this before, when you do something bad, because I've done a lot of bad, the first time you do it, it's like you feel really guilty. But then sometimes in order to get rid of the guilt, you do it again because then you try to trick yourself into believing that it wasn't wrong.
Well, that's how it happens. Like, and I don't know this firsthand, but I can see how someone can fall into some of the most carnal, lustful behavior going after kids, right? It's like, say they do it and they feel so overwhelmed with guilt and they're like, what did I just do? This is going to define me. I'm so guilty. And what they think that what softens the blow is doing it again.
Well, no. But see, it's more than that. See, first they do it again. Once they do it again, they're like, it wasn't that bad. I mean, I feel a little guilty.
Yeah, then you start justifying it. Yeah,
but then they justify it by seeking out other people who also do the same thing.
Right, because humans are naturally drawn to others of their kind and fellowship with people who have similar values.
It works in porn. Because porn also is bad. And so like when you watch, because I remember the first time I ever seen porn, freaked me the hell out. Freaked me out. But then when you see other people liking it, and then you're like, no, but I always knew porn was bad but one of my best friends, another guy who committed suicide.
Yeah.
I know so many people who committed suicide. It's not even funny. So one of my best friends, he was into porn. Like the first time I saw porn, I was like, whoa, this is really intense. And but other people liked it, and one of my best friends, he was addicted to it, and he started hanging out with nothing but a bunch of dudes who used to watch porn. And then God knows it. I mean, I honestly don't know what else he was doing, but he might have been gay. He might have been doing all kinds of weird stuff. But just one day, he got it in his head. It was too much. He couldn't have a normal relationship, and like some famous celebrity stole his girlfriend, and he was all alone. And then New Year's Eve, boom, he offs himself. But it all stems from watching porn, because his whole idea of sexuality was all messed up. But guess what? That type of behavior was normalized by all his friends. And that's the same thing. Think about it. The whole thing because what makes what Clinton did bad was that he, was having oral sex with a young girl. She was 19. He was
19 at the time?
Yeah, she was super young. She was a teenager. I mean, of course, she was an adult. But the thing is like this. you do not understand what you're doing when you're 18, 19. I mean, it's sad that you could become a cop or a soldier at 18, 21, because that's really young to try to take a person's life. You know what I mean? Those are things that really takes a lot of thinking and self-discovery to kill a person, to engage in sex. Those are serious things because you are bringing in life when you have sex. That's what the purpose of sex is. All biology is like that. So
speaking of, oh, go ahead, finish.
No. What I'm saying is, we do not understand the importance of sex, killing, or any of that stuff. We are normalizing it. We normalize death. We normalize perversion. It is a normal way of being. So when we look and analyze what happened to Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, we normalized it. Jeff Epstein, his good buddy, goes, you know what? Is there really a big difference between the age of like 65 and 19 to like 60 and 14? They're both basically the same, except for on paper, one's legal, one's not. But realistically, they're the same.
Speaking of Clinton, man, like, okay, here's the thing that we have to also address that's so related. When Clinton was under oath and he was being questioned, right, about his alleged sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky, he later obviously admitted to it, but didn't understand that oral sex didn't count as sexual relations, manipulation of language, and he played dumb. Like, this is hilarious because it's like, oh, well, I didn't think that it was, it's like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, you know how we got it, because again, oral sex is sodomy. But it's the truth. Oral sex is sodomy, and the only true sex is fornication. That's just the truth. If it's not fornication, it's not sex. Everything else is sodomy. And that's what he was committing, but they don't call it sodomy, obviously. But
they get very, very offended by that word, sodomy. I mean, I got Michael Savage thrown off the air. He could have used any other word. He probably would have been fine, but there's something about that word sodomite that just like makes people like.
Yeah, because it means it's anti-gay, because most people who commit sodomy are gay. Yeah. It's just the truth, because it's.
Well, if you've ever committed oral sex, you're a sodomite. Like it's.
No, but the thing is, but it's true. It's still gay. You know what I mean? Because it's like, dude, just stick it in. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Are you gay or something?
No. I see what you're saying with that. But we got a few minutes left. Why don't we? What's your final thoughts on this? Because this is all culmination. I like how like all of our topics are related. We talked about Epstein in the beginning, and then promiscuity, and then progressivism. And I love that now we've gone to a point with this show where it's like I feel like our listeners kind of know like. I hope you guys who are listening, because I have to address that sometimes when I talk to you, I forget that people are also listening to this, that you guys get something out of this, because we're 70 plus episodes in. We should see a pattern now. We're at this point now where I think we've defined certain things. Like I think the progressivism is suicide and death culture like that. I wish more people.
It's not a thought, it's a fact. No, seriously.
But when I say the thought, I mean like we actually push that on this show. You could almost say that that's something that we have defined as like something we know that we define. It's not anything original, but for conservative news outlets, conservatives, pundits will never talk about that in the context of the why, which is that it inevitably leads to suicide and death.
No. Before we do the final thoughts, I got to say this. Progressive ideology, they want to normalize suicide. They want to make it normal. Robin Williams literally died from a disease called Lewy body dementia.
Right.
But yet somehow, some way, they're trying to make it seem like he was suicidal and he committed suicide. They named a bridge after him for committing suicide. They didn't name a bridge after him for having Lewy body dementia, which is a really horrific form of demencia to have. Think about that.
Do you think we would have found that in Anthony Bourdain as well in his suicide?
You only find it. Well, see, but here's the thing: he might have committed suicide because of what they did with.
Asia Argento and
with Robin Williams. He saw what Robin Williams got, so he was like, "Hell, I want that." It might have happened. We don't know, but
it's the same deal with these guys because Chris Cornell went out the same way too. Tom Petty might have gone out the same way.
Oh God, I hope not. But that's the whole point. So you know what I mean? No, but you hate to say things like that. But that's why I wanted to make that distinction. Like, hey, look, they normalize suicide without, look, seriously, they named a bridge after Robin Williams, not for Lewy body. There's nobody raising money for Lewy body dementia. It's all about suicide. And the more we talk about suicide, the more normalized it becomes, and then people are just going to do it. Again, we talked about it. The police commit suicide 3 times higher than the next, being shot by you. Like, if you're a cop, you're more likely to commit suicide than get shot by a criminal. And that's the truth.
Those numbers blow me away. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. That blew my mind. I was like, man, it's related.
Yeah, no, but I'm telling you, it is a suicide cult. I don't know. But anyway, those are my final thoughts, man. It's like my final thoughts. It's never gonna end, and we're just gonna keep talking until our tongues fall off, I guess. But but it's the truth.
Yeah, but I hope you guys got something out of today's episode. That's the thing, is we need to understand that progressivism is the antithesis of life. It is, and there's another passage in the Bible that I'll say as part of my final thoughts, which is, who is not of Christ is anti-Christ. Not the anti-Christ, but you're anti the truth, right? Because when we've talked about how the word is the truth, anything that goes against that is obviously going to be the antithesis of that. So this is the example of it, because Jeffrey Epstein, if there's one thing you guys can take away from this, is what is the inevitable outcome? Death. And arguably you could say that the whole concept of the gospel of the Bible is to not see death, everlasting life. So it's interesting how now you can kind of see how this all fits, because this guy is a successful guy, millions of dollars, and yet was defined by his carnal mind. So that's all I'll say. I'll wrap it up there because I don't want to bombard you guys with too much. But thank you guys for tuning in to today's show, and we will see you all next week. Take care, guys.